YouTube, in this video, I want to talk about a subject that I rarely see talked about online or in NBA media spaces like YouTube and Twitter, and that is the importance of culture in an NBA franchise. In this video, I want to talk about what that exactly means, what are some examples of great culture and bad culture, how much can it impact an actual team, and what does it take to build a good culture and sustain it. I'll answer right now how important I personally think it is in an NBA franchise, and I would say next to the roster, coaching, front office, and ownership, it is right up there in terms of importance on whether or not a team can have prolonged success in the NBA. Let's talk about it, folks. So obviously, like I said, this is something that I feel very strongly about, that I have a lot of takes on, that I don't see talked about enough. With the emergence of the Heat culture moniker and attention that has been getting, Heat culture, they even have that slogan on their City Edition jerseys this season, which is awesome. But other than, Heat culture being so prominent and discussed all the time, you really don't see, culture being talked about as much as it should be. For something so important, you'd think it'd be covered all the time for every team, and it's just not the case. So let's start with the basics, right? Like, what is good culture and bad culture, and what does it exactly mean? We got to define it to really talk about it and dive into it. So in my opinion, culture is a way of doing things, right? It's the vibes in a building. It's the attitude throughout an organization, right? It gives your team an identity. It's a way of doing things, right? So think about the Miami Heat, who are basically the pinnacle of great culture in the NBA, right? They're leading the way. They are by far the best right now in terms of that. And think about what exactly Heat culture is, right? It's a way of life in that organization. You know what I mean? It's a belief system. It's how they approach the game and all their business. So Miami Heat obviously having the best example of great culture. Pat Riley and Erik Spoelstra demand a certain level of effort, intensity, hard-nosed type of basketball from every player on that roster. And if that's not being met, you're not going to be on the Miami Heat for very long. That is their way of doing things. And if you don't adapt to that, you're not going to be in that building very long. And so you end up getting great results year in and year out, and overperforming perhaps year in and year out with the roster you have, because the culture demands excellence, right? From everybody. If you're not capable of great things on the floor, you're at least going to try your absolute hardest and try harder than the other team every single possession. And if you're not following those principles, you can go somewhere else, right? That's Heat culture, hard-nosed, physical, high effort, high intensity, attention to detail basketball, hard-nosed basketball. That's what they do in Miami. And if you don't fit that profile, then like I said, the Heat aren't for you. That's an example of what good culture looks like. They have a set of principles, they have a belief system, they have a way of doing things in Miami, and they stick to it, right? They don't allow exceptions. They don't allow players to do it their own way. You know what I mean? And that's given them a lot of great results over the years, and it's maintained a winning culture and a winning feel to their franchise that has kept them so good for so long, beating teams that quite frankly are better than them on paper. An example of bad culture could be the Phoenix Suns, or the Chicago Bulls, or the Detroit Pistons, right? Or the Brooklyn Nets even. The Phoenix Suns are a good example for me because they're an example right now of a team that is trying to replace good culture and work around good culture by bringing in really, really great players. And that's not how it works. Great players don't replace good culture. You need both of them. You need good players and good culture in order to win a championship. Take a look at Denver, what they've done. Their culture is incredible. There's a lot of continuity, which is something that goes hand in hand with culture. A coach and player dynamic that you build up through the years that results in good leadership, good effort, and good energy. And organizational continuity is a big part of it, like I said. As a 76ers fan, I can personally speak on my experience of why I think culture is so important, because I've seen such a chaotic and disastrous and dysfunctional culture in the 76ers franchise up until now for almost my entire life. You know what I mean? I think it's starting to turn around with Nick Nurse and Daryl Morey in charge of things and, doing it a different way. And obviously we've seen a lot of progress in this organization basically since Daryl Morey has took over in the front office. But before that, it was an absolutely dysfunctional mess, right? Total chaos. They went through so many GMs and coaches and roster overhauls throughout those years that it was just, like I said, just a total mess. There was no winning attitude. There was no, accountability, which is another word that I think is really good when you're explaining what culture is in the NBA. Accountability is huge, right? There's no set of principles. It's just like the energy was just pure chaos, right? Every single year something new happened that was totally unprecedented, like the Ben Simmons jump shot thing, the Markelle Fultz jump shot thing, the James Harden fiasco, right? Like, the culture is that's acceptable. And, because there's no winning history and winning background, in the last couple decades or so, it's hard to hold these players accountable. You know what I mean? Because with culture comes winning. Great culture in an NBA organization is only applicable if you're winning, right? I'll give you an example. Imagine a world where the Heat don't have a winning history over the past couple decades, right? They haven't won anything and they choke year in and year out. Do you think these players like Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo and all these players that come in are going to follow the Heat culture and the Heat way of doing things and buy in as much as they do if there hasn't been a long history of good results? Definitely not. You have to win in order to enforce culture and sustain it, right? Like, look at the Spurs. The Spurs had maybe the best culture in the NBA, similar to what you're seeing with the Heat right now. There was a Spurs way of doing things for a long time during their dynasty with the Tim Duncan era, where they won 5 championships, and you leave your ego at the door when you go into the Spurs organization and locker room, and everything you do is committed to winning basketball and winning championships. And if that's not your mentality, you're not going to be on the Spurs, right? You have to fit that mentality and culture, right? When the Spurs started losing and tanking, you see that culture dip a lot less and less and less throughout the years, because how can they possibly enforce that culture when they're not winning, right? Players are only willing to buy into things if they think it'll work and if they think, you know, they have a good chance of winning with it, right? Like, why would I be so strict and hard on myself and scrutinize every single day if we're in the lottery every single season? You know, that's not how culture is built, and that's not how it's sustained. You have to win in order to have good culture, and you have to have good culture in order to win. It's kind of like a chicken and egg effect, but I think if I had to, you know, put my take on how it starts, would be you start at the bottom or near the bottom, right? And over time, you build a roster with continuity with the coach and the players, and hopefully you have good enough young talent to be able to build things up organically, like you see with the Timberwolves, like you see with the Oklahoma City Thunder, like you saw with the Warriors dynasty. Through the draft, players come in, you get them a great coach, and over the years, they all improve and build cohesion together, and they find their identity, and they start winning basketball games, and maybe they win a championship or two, and all of a sudden you have top-tier culture, because for one, these players and the coach share a bond, right? The coach enforces his philosophies on the basketball court, and the players buy in because they're winning. And, you know, why wouldn't you buy in if it's working, right? And over time, it grows stronger and stronger, and all of a sudden, you are a dominant powerhouse in the NBA, like the Heat have been, like the Warriors were, like the Spurs were. And now you have your own identity and your own culture, which is centered around your core belief system about how to approach the game and how to win at a high level. So I don't think it's like one or the other. I think they both have to build organically simultaneously, right? And it's not an overnight thing. It's a long process that you have to follow and do, and just keep making the right decisions over time. And it has to be a group effort too. You can't have one guy messing up the whole culture, right? So you have to be selective about who you let on your roster and who you allow the voice in the locker room to be, and things like that, right? You have to have a franchise organizational cohesion from top to bottom, right? The owner has to buy in, the GM has to buy in, the coach has to buy in, and the players have to buy in, most importantly, and they all make decisions and work towards their goals simultaneously, right? Together, not individually. That's how culture is started, and that's how culture is sustained. But it all has to do with winning. I mean, if it's not working, then you have to try something else, right? So that's not really great culture, is it? It's chaotic, and it's, you know, short-term kind of deal, and that's what the Sixers have been doing until, you know, a couple years ago. But teams with bad culture rarely win. I mean, I could think of like a couple off the top of my head that have ever won a championship. You think about, maybe, and not even saying bad culture, you have to have, in my opinion, at least an average, you know, balanced culture to win a championship. You can't have a dysfunctional culture and win a championship, other than like Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls in The Last Dance, right, in 1998. That's about it, you know, but that was a little different because they've already had so much success, and, you know, you have the GOAT on your team. But I can think of a couple teams like within the past 20 years that had a dysfunctional culture that ended up winning championships, and those are like a couple of those, you know, Shaq and Kobe Lakers teams weren't so, you know, chemistry driven, like they had some issues with each other. But I wouldn't say it's a bad culture. I'd just say, you know, it wasn't a great culture, right? You don't have to have the best culture. You don't have to be the Miami Heat or the San Antonio Spurs to achieve great things, but it can't be mayhem and players not buying in or respecting each other or respecting the front office or respecting the coach in the locker room. It can't be that. It has to be somewhere in the middle to the top. The Lakers in 2020 are a good example of a team that was kind of just thrown together, but had enough talent and were opportunistic enough to win a championship. That's a good example for me. They didn't have an established culture that they built for so long. The Toronto Raptors, another one. They had been building it a long time, but a lot of new things happened in that offseason, and they were opportunistic enough and great enough with Kawhi Leonard and that whole team to be able to win and overcome a lot of those things. But you rarely see, you know, great players switching from team to team and end up winning a championship overnight. You know, it has to be a multi-year thing, right? Like 99% of the time, it's a multi-year thing. That's why I give the Phoenix Suns an example of a team that's not doing it the right way, right? Like they're just trying to get all these superstars on their team and try to, you know, cut corners and go around the difficult process of what it means to build a winning culture and an elite level, you know, brand of basketball. And they're trying to like subvert all that by just bringing in the top guy in free agency or bringing in the Clippers are a great example too. They take big name players and just throw them together and think, oh, well, they're good enough. That's the talent. You know, if I throw enough money at the situation and star power, it'll just, you know, equal championships. That's not how it works, man. You got to have all of the above that I just mentioned in this video in order to get to that level, because chances are in the finals, in the conference finals, you're going to face a team that has better culture, better cohesion, better chemistry, more dedication. That's just going to outplay you. You know what I mean? It's not a talent thing at the end of the day. At the top level of the finals, the Western Conference Finals, Eastern Conference Finals, everyone there is super talented. You know, it's not a thing where it's like the more talented team just dominates. It's like at the end of the day, it sometimes comes down to who wants it more and what team, you know, has the best chemistry and can outthink their opponent and, you know, outwill their opponent, right? And you see that with Denver last year. You know what I mean? Like they had, yes, the best player in the world in the MVP, but they also had this chemistry that we haven't seen since the San Antonio Spurs. You know what I mean? Like they didn't have the star power that maybe, you know, a big three Heat team had or a Golden State Warriors team had in the past, you know, when you think about great teams. But in a lot of ways, the 2023 finals for me was a battle of cultures and a battle of mental fortitude and toughness. You know what I mean? The Denver Nuggets were just a better team overall. And that's, I'm not saying that, but they also faced a team in the Miami Heat who, like I said before, has a top tier culture as well. You know, that wasn't maybe the most exciting finals matchup we've seen in the last decade, but they're just on paper with the star power and marketability and stuff like that, you know. But there's a reason those teams get there. You know, it's not because Jimmy Butler is just better in the playoffs and turns into a god, which is what people think. It's because these teams have something underneath all that, right? They have great culture and they're committed and bought in from top to bottom. Every person from the janitor to the star on that team is bought into the same set of principles, ideology, and commitment to winning basketball the way that they want to do it. That's what great culture is to me, and that's how important it is. I don't think a team with 5 superstars can win with dysfunctional culture and poor leadership. You know what I mean? It's got to be top to bottom, and it's got to be similar, like-minded, you know, types of commitment, and you just don't see that a lot with these, you know, super teams forming, and that's, I think, a big reason why they're not being so successful anymore. You know, one is because just basketball-wise, the way the NBA works anymore, you can't really win with a super top-heavy roster anymore. It's good, you know, role players have just gotten so good that you need a lot of them, but it can't be a two-man show anymore, really. You know, you need to fill out your rosters nowadays. But also, I think it's because when there's big egos and, you know, big expectations, and those things don't always, you know, mesh up very well. You know, that's why a lot of coaches get fired with superstars. That's why that's happening a lot more, in my opinion. And I just think, you know, people don't talk about this enough. You know, when they analyze, you know, a team in the playoffs, like the 4 teams remaining in the playoffs right now that are in the conference finals at the time of me recording this video, all have a clear identity. Yes, they're all super talented, but they all have their own culture and identity and thing that separates them, right? It's not just talent, and it's not just X's and O's, and it's not just, you know, personalities. It's everything. You know, it's the culture is so impactful. Think about the Thunder, the Mavs, the Pacers, and the Celtics all have their own unique culture. You know what I mean? Like I could, you know, rant about this forever, and I probably said culture in this video about 1,000 times, so forgive me. But hopefully you guys enjoyed the video, man. Make sure you guys let me know down in the comment section what you think culture means in the NBA. Did I hit it on the head? Did I miss a couple things? I probably missed a couple things. You know, I'm kind of ranting in this video. I didn't script it. All off the top. It's a freestyle, right? And I hope you guys enjoyed that, because, you know, I'm trying to do that a lot more so I can give my more, you know, natural feelings about it. And because sometimes when I script it, it sounds kind of robotic. So, you know, it's a balance. But hopefully you guys enjoyed. Make sure you guys let me know down in the comment section what you think about this topic. Is it being discussed enough? Do you see it around the, you know, media enough? Because I personally don't. I think it's one of the more important things in basketball, and you don't see it talked about enough. So I wanted to, you know, add to that discussion if anyone's even talking about it at all. So hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure you guys drop a like on the video if you guys did enjoy it. It really helps out the channel, helps new people find the video, and we're all about spreading a positive influence on this NBA community. You know, this is the greatest community in the world, and I just want to provide a place where people can go every single day to this channel and just, you know, see a video, maybe take your mind off things and talk about and share takes on basketball, which is the thing we love, and be passionate about it in, you know, this place, which is my channel. So make sure you guys comment, you know, whatever you have to say, comment, as long as it's not disrespectful to somebody else. I'm always open to everybody's, you know, takes and opinions and criticisms, whatever it may be. You know what I mean? This is a place where you can express everything you think about this beautiful game that we're talking about right now every single day. So that's what I'm here for, man. I love basketball. It's my favorite thing in the world. I get excited about it. I just talk about it every day. So make sure you guys subscribe if you guys don't want to miss any more content just like this. Hopefully you guys have a great rest of your day today, and hopefully your team has great culture, because mine, you know, we're a little rocky, the Sixers, but, you know, I think we're stabilizing. I really do. I really believe that. I think we're starting to stabilize a little bit. Hopefully it translates into a championship ring. That would make my life, right? Because I'm probably, you know, never going to see one in my life, but we'll see. We got some real loser culture over the past, you know, decade and a half. So hopefully that can switch around. I'll catch you guys in the next one. This is your boy DeHave, and as always, peace.